Hello, my friend. Tonight we step into a small village by the Yellow River, China, during the Han Dynasty, around 100 BCE. Picture yourself standing on a dirt path, the scent of freshly harvested rice wafting by, golden sunlight streaming through slanted thatched roofs. This isn't a wuxia film with heroes galloping on horseback, nor a lavish court brimming with intrigue. This is real life, full of sweat, mud, and ordinary people struggling to survive each day. You won't make it through the night, trust me, especially when the river gets angry. So, before you get too comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I'm doing here. Leave a comment. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is, or type the number 1 to say you find this story intriguing. Now, turn off the lights, maybe switch on a fan for a gentle hum, and let's embark on tonight's journey together. You're here, in a village whose name time has swallowed, but let's call it Underhill Village, for it nestles beneath a low hill where the Yellow River curves like a lazy dragon. This village is home to about 100 souls, farmers, weavers, and a few dreamers who think they might become officials. Our protagonist is a woman named Aylin, around 30 years old, not a princess or a general, but a mother, a wife, and a survivor. Aylin is nothing special in the eyes of the world. She can't read, owns no gold or silver, but she has something no one can steal: resilience. Can you picture her? Hair loosely tied with a cloth, clothes stained with mud from the rice fields, hands rough but eyes sharp as a blade. She's the heart of her small family, her husband, a carpenter named Ziha, and their 2 children, a mischievous 10-year-old boy and a 6-year-old girl who clings to her mother's skirt. Step into Aylin's world. Her home is a humble thatched hut, raised on bamboo stilts about half a meter high, a small detail that will matter later. The floor is packed earth, hard as stone, yet it carries the damp smell of rain. In one corner, a small hearth sits, its smoke blackening the walls, and a single bed for the whole family, lined with dry straw and covered with coarse cloth. Can you see it? No memory foam mattresses or goose-down blankets here. But to Aylin, this is her entire world, a place to laugh, to cry, and to keep her family safe. Are you still with me? Good. Because this world is about to get very, very wet. Medieval Florence or ancient Rome might make you think of plagues or gladiators, but here the greatest enemy is nature. The Yellow River isn't the gentle stream of poetry. It's a beast, sometimes slumbering, sometimes roaring, and when it wakes, the whole village must run. Aylin grew up with stories of floods. Her grandfather spoke of a year when the waters swept away an entire herd of cattle, and her mother never stopped talking about the flood that collapsed the village bridge. But this year, 100 BCE, things seem calm. The rice is ripening golden, the village market is alive with laughter, and children play by the riverbank, tossing stones to see who skips the farthest. Can you hear it? The gurgle of the river, the chirping of birds in the bamboo, and Aylin humming a folk song as she pounds rice. But you know, this piece is like a crocodile's smile. Beautiful, but dangerous. Imagine sitting with Aylin on her porch, watching the children play. She can't read, but she understands the river. She notices how the water shifts from clear green to murky brown, and she sees the heavy clouds gathering in the distance. The river's whispering something, she says, half joking, half serious. Want to know a secret? People in the Han Dynasty had no weather forecasts or rain apps. They relied on experience, on small signs, fish jumping more than usual, birds flying low, or the earth smelling wetter than normal. Aylin is a master at reading these signs, not because she's smarter than others, but because she has to be. Living by the Yellow River means you're always on guard, always ready to run. But run where? And how? That's the question you and Aylin will explore together. Before we go further, think about your own life for a second. Have you ever worried about a power outage or spotty Wi-Fi? Now, imagine your entire world, your home, your food, your family, depending on a river that never asks your opinion. That's Aylin's life. She has no time to dream of the capital, Chang'an, or the distant Silk Road. She's busy pounding rice, patching clothes, and teaching her daughter how to braid her hair. But don't think she's weak. Aylin is a warrior, not with a sword, but with a hoe, a broom, and an iron will. Can you see her checking the house's stilts? She taps each bamboo pole, making sure they're sturdy. If the river gets angry, she mutters, we have to be ready. This village isn't just Aylin's home. It's a community where everyone knows each other's names, argues over a stray chicken, and shares a bowl of porridge in hard times. There's Old Man Wang, who tells tales of river dragons, Granny Chin, who sells dried fish at the market, and young Ah Kang, who dreams of being an official but naps under a tree all day. Can you hear the laughter from the next house, the clink of Ziha's hammer on wood, and the children shouting as they spot a small snake? This is life, simple, repetitive, and fragile. Have you ever thought about how fragile your own life is? One big rain, one flood, and everything could vanish. Aylin knows this, but she doesn't let fear win. Take a deep breath, my friend. Imagine the smell of rice, the smoke from the hearth, and the damp earth hinting at something coming. Can you hear the river? It's whispering, but not yet roaring. Not yet. Aylin looks at the sky, frowns, then goes back to pounding rice. She doesn't know these peaceful days are about to end, and you, yes, you're here to witness it all. Are you ready? Because this story isn't just about a flood. It's about how an ordinary woman faces nature, fear, and her own heart. Are you still here, my friend? Sitting on Aylin's porch, listening to the Yellow River whisper secrets no one wants to understand. The gentle gurgle of the water is growing heavier now, like a song slowing down before it surges into a fierce chorus. Can you feel it? The air shifting? The smell of damp earth grows stronger. The sky is a heavy gray blanket, and the wind carries a chill from afar. Aylin stops pounding rice, wipes the sweat from her brow, and glances at the sky. Rain's coming, she mutters, not to you, but to herself. Have you ever felt something was about to happen, but couldn't quite name it? That's what Aylin feels right now. And you, yes, you're living in that moment with her. Today, we're not going anywhere far. We stay in Underhill Village, where the first signs of a flood begin to creep into daily life. No alarms, no sirens, no emergency texts like in your time. People of the Han Dynasty relied on their eyes, ears, and instincts. Aylin isn't a prophet, but she grew up by the river, and the river taught her how to listen. Do you see how she watches the water? It's murkier than yesterday, thick with mud and floating branches. The fish aren't jumping anymore, and the birds have vanished. "The river's angry," she says, her voice calm, but her eyes betray her. Want to know something strange? The people here believe the river has a spirit, a god that both nurtures and punishes. And when the god is angry, no one is safe. Picture yourself walking with Aylin through the village. She moves quickly, her clothes fluttering, a bamboo basket in hand carrying a bit of rice and dried vegetables. She reaches the market, where Granny Chin is grumbling about unsold fish. "Big rain's coming," Granny Chin says, pointing at the dark clouds. Aylin nods but doesn't linger. She needs to check the family's rice stash, count the sacks, and ensure they're on high racks. Do you see those bamboo racks in her house? They're raised above the floor, tied tightly with hemp ropes. They're not decorations, they're a survival plan. If the water comes, the rice must stay dry. Have you ever thought about where to store your food to keep it safe? For Aylin, it's a matter of life and death. Now, look around the village. People are starting to notice. Old Man Wang, the storyteller, sits under a tree, muttering about a flood 30 years ago. "Water up to my chest," he says, his cloudy eyes lost in memory. A Kang, the young dreamer of officialdom, drops his stick and hurries home to check the house stilts. The children aren't playing by the river anymore. They're called back by their mothers, voices sharp with urgency. Can you hear the rain? It's not the soft patter of ASMR you play to sleep, but heavy drops, pounding the thatched roofs like they're testing their strength. Aylin stands on the porch, hands on hips, watching the rain fall. Not dangerous yet, she tells herself, but you can see her shoulders tense. Have you ever tried to convince yourself everything's fine, even when you know it's not? Step into Aylin's mind for a moment. She's not just worried about herself, but about Ziha, who's busy hammering more bamboo stilts at the corner of the house, and their 2 children, huddled by the hearth. She thinks about the rice stash, the single pig in the pen, and the new dress she just sewed for her daughter. Will it be swept away? Do you see it? Her life revolves around small details: a handful of rice, a sturdy stilt, a whispered prayer. But these details will decide if she survives the flood. Want to know a secret? The Han Dynasty had no concept of disaster insurance. If the flood comes, you lose everything, and no one compensates you. Aylin knows this, so she doesn't wait for miracles. She acts. Imagine you're helping Aylin check the house. She pulls you to the rice storage, pointing at the tightly bound sacks. "They need to be higher," she says, then calls Ziha to bring more bamboo. Can you hear the hammering? That's Ziha, sweat dripping, driving the stilts deeper into the ground. "If the water rises, these have to hold," he says, his voice low but firm. Do you see how they work together? No time for arguments or complaints. The rain is falling harder, and the river begins to roar, like a beast stirred awake. Can you feel the tension? It's not loud like an action movie, but quiet, like a rope tightening around your chest. Now, look at the river. The water has risen, swallowing the grassy bank where the children played. A few small bamboo stalks are swept away, bobbing like miniature shipwrecks. Aylin stands still, clutching the edge of her tunic. She says nothing, but you can see her calculating how high the water is, how high her house is, and whether the river god will show mercy. Have you ever faced something bigger than yourself, knowing you can't control it? That's what Aylin feels right now. But she doesn't give up. She turns back to the house, checks the hearth, counts the rice again, and hugs her daughter a little tighter. "It'll be okay," she says, but you know she's talking to herself. Take a deep breath, my friend. The rain keeps falling, and the river keeps roaring. Can you hear the water? It's no longer a gurgle, it's a scream. Aylin looks at you as if she knows you're here. "Are you ready?" she asks, half teasing. You're not ready, but she is. She's spent her whole life by this river, and she knows a flood isn't just water. It's a test. Do you want to stay with her? Because this story is about to get fiercer, and yes, you're right at the heart of it. The rain falls harder, as if the sky has decided to unleash all its fury on Underhill Village. You're standing beside Aylin, feet caked in mud, hands soaked from helping her tie ropes around the rice sacks. The sound of the yellow river is no longer a whisper. It roars, like a dragon chained too long, now breaking free. Can you feel the chill seeping through your clothes? No Gore-Tex raincoats or automatic umbrellas here. Just coarse hemp cloth and Aylin's iron will. She doesn't look at you, but you know she senses your presence. "The stilts must hold," she mutters, eyes fixed on the bamboo poles raising her house. Are you ready to uncover the secret of these stilts? Because they're not just wood, they're life itself. Aylin's house, like most in the village, stands on bamboo stilts about 1/2 meter high, a detail you might have overlooked in yesterday's peaceful sunlight. But now, as water begins to lap at the village's edge, you'll understand why every family here spends a lifetime reinforcing them. Picture yourself kneeling beside Aylin, mud up to your ankles, as she inspects each stilt. She taps them with a wooden stick, listening to the sound. A solid thunk means safety. A hollow thud spells trouble. "Weak stilts mean we all die," she says, her voice calm but sharp as a knife. Have you ever checked something so vital it shaped your future? For Aylin, these stilts are exactly that. Step back in time for a moment. These stilts aren't a random idea. They're a legacy, passed down through generations since Aylin's ancestors first built by the Yellow River. Can you see it? The Han people had no engineers or architects with detailed blueprints. They learned from mistakes, from houses swept away, from floods that took everything. Aylin tells you, as she ties hemp ropes around a stilt, that her grandfather lost his entire pig herd because his stilts were too short. "He said the river doesn't forgive," she snorts, but her eyes burn with resolve. Want to know a fascinating detail? These stilts aren't just driven into the ground. They're soaked in salt water for months to resist rot, a trick Aylin learned from her mother. Can you see the ingenuity in that simplicity? Now, look around the house. Water has started creeping into the village, not like a tsunami in movies, but slowly, like a sneaky thief. The village paths are turning to sludge, and the rice fields, the village's hope, are sinking under murky water. Aylin doesn't panic. She pulls you inside, pointing to the packed earth floor, now damp. "We need to raise everything," she says, starting to stack rice, clothes, and even the clay pot on bamboo racks. Can you hear the children? Her son, A Wei, tries to help his mother, but keeps dropping things. Her little daughter, May, clutches her straw doll, eyes wide as water creeps beneath the floor. Have you ever had to be strong for someone else? That's exactly what Aylin is doing. Imagine you're helping Aylin move belongings. She hands you a heavy rice sack, and you climb the bamboo rack to place it safely. Careful, she warns, her tone stern but not angry. Ziha, her husband, is outside, hammering more stilts around the pig pen. Can you hear the hammer? Each strike is a prayer, a hope this family will endure the flood. Aylin doesn't pause to complain. She checks the hearth, ensuring the fire still burns, because if the water rises, fire will be the only thing keeping the family warm. Do you see how she moves? Swift, precise, like someone who's trained her whole life for this moment. Want to know a secret? She's afraid, but she won't let fear win. Outside, the village is stirring. Granny Chin, the fish seller, is shouting because her stock of dried fish is flooding. Old Man Wang, instead of storytelling, is helping Ah Kang drag a cow up the hill. Can you see it? The flood spares no one, rich or poor, but it hits hardest those like Aylin, who have one house, one rice stash, one chance. Water is knee-deep in low areas, and the rain is relentless, like a song with no end. Aylin looks out the door, where water laps just below the stilts. Not dangerous yet, she says, but you can see her counting every raindrop. Have you ever faced something you couldn't stop? That's her reality now. Take a deep breath, my friend. Can you hear the river's roar? It's no longer a lazy dragon. It's awake. Aylin holds her daughter's hand, checks the stilts one last time, and whispers a prayer. Do you see her eyes? They're not the eyes of someone who gives up. She knows the water could take everything, but she'll fight to the end. Do you want to stay with her? Because this story is getting intense, and you, yes, you're here, muddy, soaked, but part of it. Ready? We're about to see Aylin face the flood head-on. The water creeps beneath Aylin's floor, and the rain now sounds like a tireless chorus. You're standing beside her, soaked to the bone, mud clinging to your hem. But Aylin's gaze doesn't waver. She doesn't look at the water, doesn't look at the rain. She looks to the sky, as if she could bargain with the spirits. What the river wants, it takes, she says, her voice low, like she's sharing an ancient secret. But Aylin isn't the type to wait for fate. Can you feel her heartbeat? It's racing, yet she stays calm, because her two children are watching their mother, and Ziha is leaning on her more than ever. Today, you'll see her face the flood, not just with bamboo stilts or rice sacks, but with something stronger: faith. Are you ready to step into her ritual to beseech the heavens? The rain keeps falling, and Underhill Village now looks like a painting with smudged colors. The village paths have turned to rivers, and the low thatched roofs seem ready to surrender. But Aylin isn't inside. She leads you to a raised patch near the village shrine, where villagers gather, holding incense and bamboo baskets of fruit. Can you smell the smoke? It's sweet, sharp, and clings to the air like a fragile promise. The village shrine is just a small hut, its roof thatched with leaves, but inside is the altar to the river god, a wooden statue carved as a dragon, its eyes glinting with black stones. Do you see how the villagers kneel? Not out of fear, but respect. The Yellow River isn't just water. It's a god, a mother, a destroyer. Aylin stands among the crowd, holding 3 incense sticks, smoke curling like thin silk ribbons. She doesn't cry, doesn't tremble, but you can see she's praying. "God, please spare us," she whispers, her voice blending with the rain. Have you ever prayed for something bigger than yourself? Here, no one prays for wealth or fame. They pray for houses to stand, for rice to stay dry, for children to live. Old Man Wang, the storyteller, leads the ritual, his hoarse but powerful voice recounting a legend of a river dragon that swallowed a village for neglecting offerings. Do you see Aylin's eyes? She doesn't believe a dragon will eat anyone, but she believes in the power of unity. This ritual is how the village holds hands, if only for a moment. Picture yourself kneeling beside Aylin, incense in hand, the smoke stinging your eyes. She hands you a small orange, telling you to place it on the altar. "The god likes oranges," she says, a corner of her mouth twitching as if joking. Can you see it? Even in the flood, Aylin finds a way to make you smile. But behind that smile is a plan. The ritual isn't just prayer. It's how the village steels itself. Can you hear the drum? A slow, steady beat, like the village's heartbeat. Granny Chin, the fish seller, scatters salt around the altar, believing it wards off evil spirits. A Kang, the usually lazy youth, is serious for once, striking the ground with a stick, as if rousing the spirits. Want to know a curious detail? The Han people believed salt and smoke could soothe the river's anger. Science might disagree, but would you argue with a village mid-prayer? Now, look deeper into the ritual. Aylin isn't just praying for her family. She prays for Granny Chin, for Old Man Wang, even for Ah Kang, though he drives her mad. Do you see how she rests a hand on her daughter's shoulder? A Mei, small and scared, clutches her straw doll, eyes fixed on the dragon statue. "Don't be afraid," Aylin whispers, but you know she's speaking to herself too. Ziha stands behind, holding incense, silent but steadfast. Have you ever had to be strong for others? Aylin is doing that, not with swords or gold, but by keeping her family and village from crumbling. The ritual drags on, the smoke thickens, and the drum slows, as if lulling the village into a peaceful dream. But can you hear it? The river. It cares nothing for incense, salt, or prayers. Water has reached the house stilts, and some thatched roofs are leaking. Aylin glances outside, seeing murky water sweep branches, straw, and an unlucky chicken. She doesn't panic, but you can see her calculating. "After praying, we run," she says, her voice low but firm. Do you see how she grips Awei's hand? The boy tries to act brave, but his hand trembles. Do you want to stay with them? Because this ritual isn't the end. It's the start of a battle. Take a deep breath. The smell of incense, mud, and fear mingles in the air. Can you feel the rain soaking through your clothes? Aylin looks at you, as if she knows you're here. "The river doesn't listen," she says, half joking. But she doesn't give up. She plants her incense in the ground, stands, and leads her family home. Are you ready to follow? Because the water is closing in, and Aylin, with all her resilience, is about to face her greatest test. Still with me? Good. This story is moving. And you, yes, you're part of it. Your part. The water has come. Not like a guest knocking for a cup of tea, but like a thief smashing through everything in its path. You stand beside Aylin, feet sinking in muddy sludge, eyes stinging from the relentless rain. The yellow river's roar is now a frenzied symphony, sweeping away branches, thatched roofs, and pieces of lives from Underhill Village. Aylin's house still holds, its bamboo stilts creaking but not breaking, yet water has breached the floor, turning the home into a teetering boat amidst the flood. Can you feel the cold seeping into your bones? Aylin doesn't look at you, but she knows you're here, and she's fighting, not just for herself, but for Ziha, Awe, Ame, and the village slowly drowning. Are you ready to witness the moment water swallows everything? The rain doesn't stop, and the water rises at a pace that makes you want to scream. But Aylin doesn't scream. She kneels on the floor, arms around Ame, whispering, "Don't be afraid. Mama's here." Awe stands nearby, trying to look brave, but the 10-year-old can't hide his panicked eyes. Ziha is outside, wading through thigh-deep water, tying ropes around the pig pen. Can you hear the pig's squeals? Not the cheerful sound of cartoons, but a cry of desperation. Aylin stands, wipes her face, and commands, "Grab the rice, the clothes, to the hill." Her voice is sharp as a blade, leaving no room for argument. Have you ever had to make a split-second decision, knowing it would change everything? Aylin is doing that right now. Picture yourself running after her, clutching a sodden rice sack, water splashing with every step. Aylin leads, pulling Ame, while Awe hugs a bundle of clothes. Ziha follows, carrying an axe, not for fighting, but to cut bamboo if needed. Do you see the village? It's no longer the peaceful scene of golden rice and playing children. The paths are rivers, roofs float like driftwood, and shouts echo from all sides. Granny Chin, the fish seller, wades through, dragging a basket of dried fish. Old man Wang, frail but stubborn, clings to his staff, muttering, "The river wants it all." Ah Kang, the lazy youth, is useful for once, helping a family drag their cow uphill. Can you see it? The flood spares no one. The water is knee-deep, then waist-high. Can you feel the current's strength? It's not just wet. It pulls you like an invisible hand trying to hold you back. Aylin doesn't stop. She shouts, "Don't look back!" But you look, and you see. Granny Chin's house has collapsed, her fish stock swept away. A child's cry rings out somewhere, drowned by the rain. Aylin grips Ame tighter, nearly carrying her on her shoulder. "The hill. We have to reach the hill," she says, her voice hoarse from shouting. Have you ever fled something you knew you couldn't defeat? Aylin is doing that, and you're right beside her. Move with her family. The hill isn't far, but each step is a battle. The mud is slick, the water pushes you back, and the rice sack on your shoulder feels like stone. Aylin doesn't complain. She pulls away when he slips, and when A May cries over her lost straw doll, she says, "Mama will make a new one." Do you see her strength? Not the strength of epic heroes, but the quiet kind, born of love and duty. Ziha follows, axe on his shoulder, eyes scanning the village. "Hurry!" he shouts as the water rises faster. Can you hear the crack of wood? That's a house somewhere, surrendering to the flood. Now, look up at the hill. A few villagers have made it, huddling under trees, clinging to each other for warmth. Can you smell the wet earth and leaves? Not the pleasant scent of spring rain, but the smell of survival. Ai sets Ah Mei down, checking her for injuries, then turns to A Wei. "Count the rice, check the clothes." The boy nods, though his hands still shake. Ziha arrives, drenched like a drowned rat, but he flashes a weak smile. "The pig's alive." Ai nods. But do you see her eyes? She's thinking of those who haven't reached the hill, of the lost houses, of the uncertain future. Have you ever stood on the edge of hope and despair? Ai is there, and she chooses hope. Pause for a moment. Take a deep breath. Can you hear the rain? It's still falling, but the hill is safe for now. Ai sits, pulling her children close, and looks down at the village. Water has swallowed nearly everything, with only a few roofs poking out like tiny islands. Do you see her whispering? Not praying, but storytelling. A tale of her ancestors who defeated floods. "We'll do it too," she says, her voice certain. Do you want to believe her? Because this story isn't over, and Ai, with all her resilience, will guide you through the darkest days. Still with me? Good, because the water is still rising, and you're here with her, on this cold hilltop. Beneath the trees on the high hill, you huddle beside Ai, rain pouring relentlessly, but the floodwaters can't reach you here. The yellow river's roar echoes from below, like a wounded beast, still fierce but weakening. Can you feel the cold seeping through your soaked clothes? Ai holds A Mei tightly, the little girl trembling, her wide eyes staring at the village now a murky sea. A Wei sits close, clutching the rice sack, trying to seem tough, but the boy can't hide his fear. Ziha stands a few steps away, axe still on his shoulder, eyes scanning the hill to count survivors. Ai says nothing, but you can see her fighting, not against water, but against the growing pain in her heart. Today, you'll flee the flood with her, but also face the first losses. Are you ready? The dim afternoon light pierces the rain, illuminating weary faces on the hill. Do you see Granny Chin? She's sitting, clutching her sodden basket of dried fish, muttering about her stock swept away. Old Man Wang, leaning on his staff, tells a tale of an ancient flood, as if it could soothe fear. But Ai isn't listening. She stands, pulling Ai Wei and A Mei, and says, "We need to go higher." This hill is safe, but not high enough if the water keeps rising. Ziha nods. But do you see his eyes? He's looking at their house, teetering on its stilts. "The pig might not make it," he says, his voice low. Ai doesn't reply, but you know she's thinking. The pig is food, hope, the whole winter ahead. Follow Ai, my friend. She leads her family along a muddy trail up the hill toward a higher ridge where other villagers have gathered. Can you feel the slick mud underfoot? Each step is a struggle, and the rice sack on your shoulder weighs like the world. A-Lin pulls A-Mei, nearly carrying her, while A-Wei stumbles, dropping a shirt into the mud. "Pick it up," she snaps, her voice sharp but not angry. Have you ever had to stay calm as everything falls apart? A-Lin is doing that, and you're here, wading through mud with her. Ziha trails behind, axe in hand, ready to cut trees for shelter if needed. Can you hear the distant crack of wood? Another house, surrendering to the flood. The trail leads to the higher ridge, where a small group of villagers is building makeshift shelters from bamboo and leaves. Can you smell the wet leaves? Not the fresh scent of a forest, but the smell of survival, of people who've lost everything, yet keep trying. A-Lin sets A-Mei down, checking her for injuries, then turns to A-Wei. "Help your father with the shelter." The boy nods, though his hands still shake. But then you hear a scream, not from A-Lin, but from Granny Chin running up the hill, her face pale. "My child!" she cries, pointing below. You look, and your heart stops. A child, no older than 8, clings to a bamboo stalk in the raging water, the stalk bending as if about to snap. A-Lin doesn't hesitate. She bolts down, ignoring Ziha's shout. "Don't!" Do you run after her? Her feet slip in the mud, but she doesn't stop, eyes locked on the child. The water is waist deep, icy, pulling at her like it wants to swallow her whole. "Hold on!" she yells, her voice cutting through the rain. Have you ever seen someone risk their life for another? A-Lin is doing that, not because Granny Chin is a friend, but because the child is part of the village. She grabs a bamboo stalk, reaches out, and pulls the child into her arms. Can you feel the weight of this moment? But the current is too strong. She slips, and for a heartbeat, you think she'll be swept away. Ziha lunges, pulling them both to safety, water splashing everywhere. They reach the hill, drenched, the child sobbing in A-Lin's arms. Granny Chin embraces her child, tears mixing with rain. A-Lin gasps for breath, but she doesn't smile, doesn't speak. Do you see her eyes? Not the eyes of a hero, but of someone who just saw death. "Who else?" she asks, her voice hoarse. No one answers. Can you hear the silence? It's heavier than the rain. A-Lin looks at the village, and you know she's thinking, who didn't make it to the hill? Who did the water take? Have you ever felt loss before knowing it's real? A-Lin is feeling that, and you're here with her. Sit beside her, under the makeshift leaf canopy. The rain still falls, but you're safe, for now. A-Lin holds A-Mei, whispering, "Mama won't let you go." A-Wei sits close, silent, eyes distant. Ziha checks the shelter, but you know he's hiding his fear. Can you see it? The flood doesn't just take homes, it takes the sense of safety. A-Lin looks at you, as if to say, you've seen it now. Do you want to stay with her? Because this story isn't just about water. It's about what remains when the water recedes. Still with me? Good, because A-Lin isn't done. And you, yes, you're here with her, on this cold ridge. The rain has softened, now just dripping like belated tears, but the yellow river still roars at the hill's base, as if unsatisfied with what it's already taken. You sit beside Aylin on the high ridge, under a makeshift leaf shelter, the faint warmth from a small fire pushing back the chill in your bones. Aylin holds May tightly, the girl asleep, her mud-streaked face peaceful. Awe leans against his father's shoulder, eyes half closed, while Ziha grips his axe, as if it's the only thing keeping him alert. Can you smell the smoke and wet earth? The air is heavy, not just from rain, but from the losses becoming clear. Today, you'll face the grave diggers with Aylin, those who carry tales of death and survival. Do you have the courage to look into that darkness? Night falls, and the flickering firelight illuminates the villagers' weary faces. Do you see Granny Chin? She's a few steps away, clutching her rescued child, whispering endless thanks. But not everyone was so lucky. Aylin gazes into the distance, where shadowy figures move under the faint moonlight. They're the grave diggers, revered yet feared by the village. They're not hunters or farmers. They're the ones who bury, who face death, so the living can go on. They work all night, Aylin says, her voice low, eyes fixed on the dark shapes. Have you ever thought about those who clean up after tragedy? Here, they're the lifeblood of survival. Come with Aylin, my friend. She stands, gently laying May beside Ziha, and walks to the ridge's edge. Can you hear the shovels? That's the sound of the grave diggers, carving shallow graves in soft earth. Aylin doesn't want to look, but she must. How many did we lose? She whispers, not to you, but to the darkness itself. No one knows exactly. A man, Aho, leads the diggers, his face smeared with mud, eyes red from sleeplessness. 7, maybe more, he says, his voice rough like stones grinding. Do you see Aylin's hands clench? She knows one of them is her sister, Ying, who didn't make it to the hill. Have you ever felt your heart weigh heavy with a name? Look closer. The grave diggers don't just bury the dead. They carry stories. Aho, pausing to rest, tells of a family swept away trying to save their cow. Another, Alon, speaks of an old man who lived alone, who chose to stay because he was too old to run. Do you see how Aylin listens? She doesn't cry, but you know she's memorizing every name. The grave diggers aren't paid in coin. They're paid in silent gratitude and a bowl of porridge from the living. Want to know a curious detail? The Han people believed proper burial kept spirits from troubling the living. Aylin isn't sure she believes it, but she prays anyway for Ying. Now, feel the air. The small fire crackles, and the smell of damp earth mixes with smoke. Can you hear the crying? It's not loud, but muffled, from a corner of the shelter. Aylin turns, seeing Granny Chin sobbing, not for her son, but for her sister-in-law, not among the survivors. Aylin steps over, placing a hand on her shoulder, saying nothing. Have you ever comforted someone without words? Aylin does that, and you see the strength in her silence. She returns to her family, checks the shelter, counts the rice, and hugs Awe tighter. Sleep, she says, but you know she won't. She's thinking of Ying, the graves, and tomorrow. Sit closer to the fire, my friend. Do you see the grave diggers? They keep working, their shadows cast on the earth like ghosts. Aho pauses, wipes sweat, and looks up. The rain stopped, he says, his voice almost hopeful. Lin hears, but she doesn't trust it. She knows the river is still there, and it could rage again. Do you see how she checks the shelter? She reties ropes, adjusts leaves, as if daring the water to try again. Ziha sits beside her, axe at his feet, whispering, "We'll rebuild." Lin nods, but you know she's thinking, rebuild with what? When everything's gone? Take a deep breath. Can you feel the fire's warmth? It's faint, but enough to remind you life persists. Lin looks at you, as if she knows you're here. Surviving isn't just running, she says, her voice low. It's remembering. Do you understand her? She's remembering Ying, the village, and who she was before the flood. Do you want to continue with her? Because this story isn't just about loss. It's about what remains. And Lin, with all her heart, will lead you through the darkness. Still with me? Good, because you're here, by the fire, with her, waiting for the water to recede. The faint moonlight filters through the leaves, casting a pale glow on the high ridge where you sit beside Lin, the small fire now reduced to crackling embers. The rain has stopped, but the yellow river's murmur echoes below, a warning that it hasn't yet slept. Can you feel the night's chill, even with your clothes half dry? Lin wraps May in coarse cloth, the girl sleeping soundly, her breaths steady. Wei stays awake, eyes fixed on the darkness. Ziha checks the shelter's ropes, his axe at his feet, ready for any surprise. Lin is silent, hands clasped tightly, but you know she's thinking of the shallow graves just dug, of Ying, and of the days ahead. Today, you'll join her in surviving on this hill, learning to turn hunger and fear into hope. Do you have the strength to keep going with her? The night deepens, and the air on the ridge is thick with the smell of wet leaves and smoke. Do you see the shadowy figures? Villagers huddle in leaf shelters, sharing watery porridge from the only clay pot left. Granny Chin, eyes swollen, feeds her son, whispering thanks to Lin for saving him. Old Man Wang, though exhausted, tells tales of ancestors who outlasted floods, as if words could warm them. Lin doesn't join in. She kneels by the shelter, checking the rice sacks. Only 3 remain, enough for a few days if rationed. We need to find food, she says, her voice low but firm. Have you ever counted each grain of rice, knowing it's the line between life and death? Lin is doing that now. Follow her to the ridge's edge, where she stands gazing at the village. The water still floods, but it's lower, revealing bits of thatched roofs and branches stuck in mud. Fish, she mutters, her eyes lighting up. Can you see it? The flood took the rice, but it also brought fish from the river to the fields. Lin calls Wei. Get the bamboo basket. The boy, though tired, runs to obey, and you see a spark of hope in his eyes. Lin leads you and Wei to a shallow pool, where small fish swim sluggishly. Careful, she says, showing you how to catch them with your hands. Can you feel the icy water? Your hands slip, but Aylin is lightning fast, snatching a shimmering fish. Fish for tonight, she says, a corner of her mouth lifting. Do you see it? Even in darkness, she finds light. Now, return to the shelter. Arlene roasts the fish over embers, the aroma wafting, waking even those asleep. Can you smell it? Not fancy sashimi, but the scent of survival, of hope. Villagers gather, sharing tiny pieces of fish, and for the first time tonight, you hear laughter, not loud, but enough to push back some fear. Aylin gives fish to May, then Granny Chin, before taking her own share. Eat, she says to you, as if you're truly here. Have you ever shared your last bite with someone else? Aylin does it, not out of nobility, but because she knows the village is only strong when everyone survives. Look deeper into this moment. The small fire, muddy faces, and villagers' whispers form a strange picture, not of despair, but of resilience. Alin tells a story, not of river dragons like Old Man Wang, but of her mother, who caught fish in a flood to feed the family. She said the river takes, but it also gives, she says, her voice low. Do you see how Awei listens? He's learning, not just how to catch fish, but how to survive. Ziha, sitting close, adds twigs to the fire, saying, Tomorrow, we'll find more. Arlin nods, but you know she's thinking, find where? When the village is mud? Feel the air. The fire crackles, and the river's sound fades, as if weary. But Arlin doesn't relax. She checks the shelter, recounts the rice, and reties ropes to withstand wind. Do you see how she moves? Each action is a declaration against the flood, the darkness, the fear. Want to know a curious detail? The Han people believed fish from floods were gifts from the river god, an apology for its rage. Aylin isn't convinced, but she whispers thanks while roasting the fish, as her mother taught her. Have you ever thanked something you're not sure exists? Aylin does, and it keeps her going. Sit closer, my friend. Do you see the moonlight? It's brighter, as if comforting the survivors. Aylin looks at you, as if she knows you're here. We're not done, she says, her voice soft but certain. Do you understand? Survival isn't just eating, sleeping, or escaping. It's holding on to hope, however small. Do you want to stay with her? Because the water is still below, and Aylin, with all her strength, will lead you through the hardest days. Still with me? Good, because you're here, by the fire, with her, waiting for the light. The night has passed, and the fading moonlight gives way to a gray dawn on the high ridge. You wake beside Aylin, your body aching from sleeping on hard ground, your breath mingling with the smell of wet leaves and ash. The yellow river's murmur hums below, weaker now, like a beast exhausted after its rampage. Aylin has been up for hours, kneeling by a newly kindled fire, blowing embers to warm a pot of watery porridge. Ame is curled in coarse cloth, still asleep, while Awei helps his father retie the leaf shelter. Ziha, axe still at his hip, gazes at the village, where water lingers but has receded. Aileen says little, but her eyes are sharp, planning for a day no one wants to face. Today, you'll join her in exploring the stories told by firelight, the legends and hopes that helped the villagers through the dark. Are you ready to hear the whispers by the fire? Look around the ridge. Villagers stir, their mud-streaked faces clear in the dim light. Granny Chin combs her son's hair, murmuring comfort, while Old Man Wang, leaning on his staff, mutters about a new day. Ah Kang, once a lazy youth, now shares water from a bamboo flask, his eyes red from sleeplessness. Can you see it? The flood has changed everyone, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Aylin pours porridge into clay bowls, giving Amei hers first, then Awei. Eat slowly, she says, her voice gentle but firm. Can you smell the porridge? It's bland, just rice and water, but in this moment, it's worth more than gold. Have you ever eaten a meal where each bite felt like a miracle? Sit close to Aylin by the small fire. She doesn't eat yet. She's counting rice, calculating how many days it'll last. 3 days, if we're careful, she murmurs, glancing at you as if seeking confirmation. Do you see how she grips the bowl? She knows the rice will run out, and the river hasn't fully retreated. But last night, by the fire, the villagers shared stories, not to forget the flood, but to find reasons to go on. Old Man Wang spoke of a river god who spared a village for their sincerity. We must tell stories, he said, so the god doesn't forget. Aylin listened, but you know she doesn't believe in gods. She believes in herself. Have you ever heard a story you knew wasn't true, but needed it to keep going? Picture yourself there, last night, as the fire burned bright and villagers gathered. Granny Chin told of her ancestors who survived a flood by tying bamboo rafts and living on the river for a month. They sang to stay strong, she said, then hummed a mournful tune, her voice trembling. Ah Kang, serious for once, shared a tale of an uncle who caught a giant fish during a flood, enough to feed the village. Is it true? Awei asked, eyes gleaming. Aylin smiled but didn't answer. Can you see it? These stories aren't just words, they're anchors, keeping everyone from sinking into despair. Aylin told her own story, of her mother, who planted rice on a hill after a flood to feed the family. She said the earth still lives, even when water takes, she said, her voice low. Can you feel the strength in her words? Listen deeper. The nighttime stories weren't just legends, they were plans. Old Man Wang mentioned a nearby forest with edible roots. Granny Chin spoke of trapping fish in shallow pools. Aylin memorized it all, and you see her planning. This morning, she'll take Awei to find roots, and Ziha will check the pools. Do you want to come along? Aylin stands, tying her hair with a cloth, and says, Today, we don't wait. Can you see her resolve? She's not waiting for the river god or miracles. She acts. Have you ever had to stand when you wanted to collapse? Aylin does it every day. Get ready, because Aylin is calling you. She hands you a bamboo basket, telling you to follow. Roots in the forest, she says, pointing to a wood a few hundred steps from the ridge. Can you hear the wind? It's gentle, but carries the morning's chill. Aylin walks, Away trailing, and you see her check the soil, searching for signs of edible plants. "Mama knows this place," she says, her voice certain. "Can you see it?" The flood took homes, but not her knowledge. She digs, finding roots, and teaches Away to identify edible ones. Do you want to learn? Because Aylin, with all her resilience, is turning darkness into light. Feel this moment. Do you see the dawn's faint light? It's weak, but enough to illuminate Aylin's mud-streaked face. She looks at you, as if she knows you're here. "Surviving is work," she says, her voice soft but sharp. Do you understand? The nighttime stories gave her strength, but her hands will keep her family alive. Do you want to continue with her? Because the water is receding, but challenges remain, and Aylin, with her unyielding heart, will lead you through. Still with me? Good, because you're here, in the forest, with her, searching for hope. The pale dawn gives way to weak sunlight, filtering through sparse trees on the high ridge. You stand beside Aylin, hands still gripping the bamboo basket filled with freshly dug roots, the smell of damp earth and sap clinging to your fingers. Below, the yellow river has finally retreated, leaving a ravaged village, shattered thatched roofs, muddy rice fields, and fragments of lives floating in memory. Aylin looks down, her eyes unblinking, but you know her heart is counting every loss. Ah Ying, the rice stash, the house teetering on its stilts. Ah Mei clings to her mother's skirt, while A Wei silently hugs a bundle of dry firewood. Ziha, axe in hand, whispers, "The water's gone." But Aylin doesn't reply. She knows a receding river doesn't mean safety. Today, you'll join her in facing the ruins of Underhill Village, where survival demands more than hope. It demands action. Do you have the courage to step into the mud with her? The daylight is harsh, exposing the devastation the night concealed. Can you see it? The village looks like a graveyard of dreams. Collapsed roofs, empty pig pens, and the rice fields. Aylin's pride, now a sea of murky mud. Aylin leads you down the hill, her steps slow but steady, each one a declaration against destruction. A Wei follows, carrying a small hoe, while A Mei holds her mother's hand, her wide eyes scanning the debris. Ziha goes ahead, checking the muddy path, axe ready to clear any obstacle. Can you feel the weight of this moment? The water has receded, but it leaves a question. How do you rebuild from this wreckage? Walk with Aylin through what was once the village path, now mud and broken branches. She stops at her house, the stilts still standing, but the floor sodden. Part of the roof collapsed. "It can be fixed," she says, her voice steady, though you see her hands clutch her tunic. Have you ever looked at something broken and wondered if it's worth saving? Aylin doesn't wonder. She kneels, checking the stilts, tapping each one like testing a heartbeat. "Good stilts," she mutters, then turns to A Wei. "Get dry bamboo. I need to patch the roof." The boy nods, running off, and you see a spark of resolve in his eyes. Do you want to help? Because Aylin is turning ruins into a new beginning. Look around. Villagers are returning, wading through mud to salvage what's left. Granny Chin, holding her ruined basket of dried fish, shakes her head, but digs for belongings. Old Man Wang, though frail, shows Ah Kang how to retie house stilts. Can you hear the hose? Not as loud as Ziha's hammer, but they're the sound of life, of people refusing to surrender. Aylin doesn't join the sidelines chatter. She focuses on her house, the 3 remaining rice sacks, the clay pot now caked with mud. "We need fire," she tells Ziha, and he nods, starting to kindle embers. Can you smell the smoke? It's faint, but enough to remind you that life clings, however fragile. Feel the air. Mud sticks to your feet, and the atmosphere is heavy with wet earth and rotting wood. Aylin doesn't complain. She pulls you inside, pointing to a bamboo rack where a few clothes remain dry. "Hang them," she says, her voice brief, but not harsh. Do you see how she delegates? Amei is tasked with wiping the pot. Awei fetches bamboo. Ziha fixes the roof. Each has a role, like a small army against chaos. Have you ever worked with someone where words weren't needed, just understanding? Aylin and Ziha do that, communicating with glances and nods. But do you know what she's thinking? She's thinking of Ah Ying, the shallow graves, and how to feed her children when the rice runs out. Pause for a moment, look at Aylin. She kneels by the hearth, blowing embers, her mud-streaked face lit by the fire's glow. "Surviving is work," she said last night, and now she's living it. Can you see it? She doesn't dream of Chang'an or the Silk Road. She dreams of a roof that doesn't leak, a full pot of porridge, Amei's laughter. Want to know a curious detail? The Han people believed mud after a flood held the river's power, and using it to build houses brought the gods' blessing. Aylin isn't sure she believes, but she mixes mud with straw, preparing to mend the floor. Have you ever found strength in what destroyed you? Aylin is doing that. Stay here, with her. Do you see the sunlight? It's weak, but enough to warm the ridge. Aylin looks at you, as if sensing you're here. "The water's gone, but we're not done," she says, her voice low. "Do you understand? Ruins are a beginning, but this beginning is full of challenges. Do you want to keep going with her? Because Aylin, with all her resilience, is leading you through the wreckage to find light. Still with me? Good, because you're here, muddy, with her, starting to rebuild." The pale midday sun casts weak streaks of light over Underhill Village, now a field of mud and debris. You stand beside Aylin, hands caked with mud, sweat soaking through your coarse hemp tunic. The Yellow River's roar has softened, murmuring like a belated apology, but the flood's wreckage remains. Collapsed roofs, broken stilts, ravaged rice fields. Aylin kneels by her teetering house, mixing mud with straw to patch the floor, her mud-streaked face lit with the same fire as last night's blaze. Amei plays with a dry twig, while Awei helps Ziha tie fresh bamboo to the roof. Can you smell the mud and wet wood? It's not the scent of defeat, but of starting anew. Today, you'll join Aylin in rebuilding from the ruins, turning mud into a new foundation. Do you have the strength to pick up a hoe and keep going? Villagers move slowly, like ghosts in the daylight. Do you see Granny Chin? She's digging through mud, searching for surviving clay bowls, muttering about her lost fish stock. Old Man Wang, perched on a log, points, guiding Ah Kang on retying house stilts. The sound of hoes and hammers rings out sporadically, uneven, but each strike is a heartbeat of a village struggling to revive. Aylin doesn't join the chatter. She focuses on her house, hands kneading mud, eyes checking each stilt. "The house must be strong before winter," she says, her voice low but certain. "Have you ever rebuilt something from nothing, with only your bare hands? Aylin is doing that, and you're here, muddy with her. Kneel beside her, feel the cold mud under your hands. Aylin shows you how to mix straw into mud, creating a pliable paste to patch the floor. Straw keeps the mud from cracking," she says, her hands deft. "Can you see it? She's not just fixing a house. She's mending hope." Ziha, at the other end, drives new stilts. Each hammer strike a vow that the family will have shelter. A Wei, though tired, carries bundles of dry bamboo, and A Mei, with a child's innocence, tries gathering twigs to help her mother. Can you hear Ah Mei's giggle? It's faint, but enough to soften the heavy air. Have you ever found joy in small things amidst tragedy? Aylin does, and she shares it with a fleeting glance, as if saying, "We'll make it." Look beyond. The village isn't just Aylin's home, it's a community, and this community is trying to stand. A Kang, once dreaming of officialdom, is mud-caked, helping Granny Chin rebuild her storage shed. "No more dried fish, but plenty of mud," he jokes, and Granny Chin, though weary, laughs. Old Man Wang, too weak to dig, tells of ancestors who built the village from nothing, as if his words could lend strength. Can you see it? The flood took much, but not their spirit. Aylin listens, but doesn't pause. She kneads mud, patches the floor, checks the hearth. "The fire must burn," she says, like a proclamation. Do you want to kindle the fire with her? Because fire doesn't just warm. It's a sign of life. Feel the rhythm of the work. The squelch of mud being kneaded, the creak of bamboo. The villagers' murmurs form a strange music, not melodic, but alive. Aylin stands, wiping her hands on her tunic, and surveys the house. The floor is patched, the roof less leaky, but so much remains. "Rice is low," she whispers, not to you, but to herself. Have you ever counted days, knowing resources were dwindling? Aylin does, but it doesn't stop her. She calls A Wei. "Go find fish, the pools are still full." The boy nods, grabbing a bamboo basket, and you see he's no longer trembling like last night. Can you see it? Aylin isn't just building a house, she's building a future for her children. Step back, see the bigger picture. The village, though broken, is reviving bit by bit. A roof is raised, a hearth kindled, a bowl of porridge shared. Can you smell the porridge? It's bland, but enough to make Aimee smile as her mother feeds her. Aylin eats sparingly. She gives her share to her children, like every Han mother. Want to know a curious detail? The Han believed mud after a flood carried the river's spirit, and building with it brought divine protection. Aylin isn't superstitious, but she mixes mud carefully, as if thanking the river for retreating. Have you ever found meaning in what destroyed you? Aylin does, and it keeps her standing. Return to her side. Feel the warmth from the newly lit hearth. Aylin looks at you, her eyes no longer those of someone fleeing. They're the eyes of a builder. "We're not done," she says, her voice soft but sharp. "Do you understand? Rebuilding isn't just patching floors or roofs. It's keeping spirits unbroken. Do you want to stay with her? Because the flood may be gone, but challenges remain, and Aylin, with her muddy hands, will lead you through. Still with me? Good, because you're here, in the mud, with her, rebuilding a village. Under the pale afternoon sun, you stand beside Aylin, hands crusted with dried mud from patching the floor, the smell of wet earth and dry straw clinging around you. Underhill Village looks like a battlefield after a storm. Broken stilts, collapsed thatched roofs, and rice fields ravaged under murky mud. But Aylin's house stands stronger, its floor dry, roof less leaky, and hearth crackling, a small defiance against the yellow river, now just murmuring in the distance. Aylin wipes sweat from her brow, her eyes scanning May playing with a dry twig, Wei fetching water from a shallow pool, and Ziha checking new stilts. Can you feel the hearth's warmth? It's faint, but enough to push back the chill of flood memories. Yet a new fear creeps into Aylin's heart. Not water, but the shadow of the flood's return. Today, you'll stand with her against that dread as new clouds gather. Do you have the courage to hold fast beside her? The sky grays, and a cool breeze carries the familiar scent of moisture. Can you smell the rain? It's not heavy like the flood, but enough to make Aylin pause, her eyes lifting to the dark clouds on the horizon. "Rain again?" she mutters, her voice steady, but you see her grip tighten on the hoe. May, drawing shapes in the mud, looks up. "More rain, Mama?" Aylin smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. "Just a little rain," she says, but you know she's lying to ease her daughter's heart. Have you ever hidden fear to protect someone? Aylin does, and you see quiet strength in how she strokes May's hair, as if shielding her from the sky itself. Walk the village with Aylin. She doesn't sit idle. She checks stilts, counts rice, and studies the sky like a cryptic book. The villagers sense it too. Granny Chin, wiping clay bowls, mutters, "The river's not done with us." Old Man Wang, on a log, recounts a second flood that swept his village in youth. Kang, now diligent, pauses tying bamboo, his face paling as he eyes the clouds. Can you hear their whispers? Not loud, but heavy as lead, each raindrop a reminder of what they've lost. Ying, homes, fields. Aylin doesn't join the fearful tales. She pulls you to the rice stash, checking if the cloth sacks are damp. "Must stay dry," she says, her voice sharp. Can you see it? She's not fighting clouds. She's fighting fear. Feel this moment. A raindrop lands on your hand, icy, then another. Not the deluge of the flood, but enough to quicken Aylin's pulse. She stands, looks at Ziha, and he nods, understanding. "The new stilts will hold," he says, but you see him grip his axe tighter. Aylin turns to Wei. "Bring the firewood inside. Keep it dry." The boy runs, and you see he's no longer the trembling child on the hill. He's learned from his mother how to face fear. Do you want to help? Aylin hands you a dry banana leaf, telling you to cover the hearth. The fire mustn't die, she says, like a vow. Have you ever kept something burning just to prove you could? Aylin does, and you're here, shielding the fire with her. Look deeper. The rain falls steadily, not fierce, but enough to wet the newly patched floor. Aylin doesn't panic. She pulls May to a dry corner, checks the roof, and whispers, "Just rain." But you know what she's thinking. She's thinking of Ying, the shallow graves, the 3 remaining rice sacks, and how to feed her family if the river rages again. Do you see her eyes? Not of surrender, but of someone counting every chance. Granny Chin calls from next door. "Aylin, is the water rising?" Aylin shakes her head, but you know she's watching the river, measuring the distance from water to stilts. Have you ever gauged fear by small details like that? Aylin does, and it keeps her sharp. Stay by her side, feel the raindrops on your shoulders. Villagers spring into action. Kang reties shelters. Old Man Wang murmurs prayers. Granny Chin covers her shed with banana leaves. Can you hear the rain? It's steady, like a village's heartbeat learning to breathe again. Aylin doesn't pray. She checks the hearth, counts firewood, and hugs Away when he returns with water. "Good job," she says, her voice soft. Want to know a curious detail? The Han believed rain after a flood was the river god's way of washing away sins. Aylin doesn't believe, but she lets the rain fall on her face as if it could rinse her fear. Have you ever let something soothe you, even a little? Aylin does, and it keeps her going. Sit by the hearth, where faint warmth fights the rain. Aylin looks at you, her eyes sharp yet gentle. "The rain will stop," she says, like a promise. Do you believe her? The rain may stop, but fear doesn't, and Aylin, with all her strength, is guiding you through its shadow. Still with me? Good, because you're here, under a leaky roof, with her, waiting for the light. The rain has stopped, leaving glistening streaks on the muddy ground of Underhill Village, as if the yellow river wants to remind everyone it's still watching. You sit beside Aylin by the hearth, the warmth from glowing embers drying your coarse hemp tunic, but it can't dispel the chill in her heart. Her house is sturdier now, the floor patched, the roof less leaky, but the 3 rice sacks in storage are dwindling, and the rice fields remain a sea of mud. May sleeps on her mother's lap. Wei brings dry firewood, and Ziha checks the new stilts, his axe at his hip like a sentinel. Can you hear the birds singing? They've returned, but their song is faint, as if they too know the village teeters on the edge. Aylin gazes at the river, her eyes not fearful, but planning. Today, you'll join her and the villagers in digging a canal and building a dike, turning fear into communal strength. Are you ready to pick up a hoe and stand with them? The afternoon sun casts a pale glow on mud-streaked faces, and villagers gather in the village center, where the ground is slightly higher. Do you see Granny Chin? She carries a broken hoe, but stands tall, determined to rebuild her shed. Old Man Wang, though weak, uses his staff to point directions for Kang, the youth now working tirelessly. Aylin leads, not because she seeks it, but because eyes turn to her, the woman who saved Granny Chin's son, who kept the fire burning through the flood. "We must guide the water away," she says, her voice low but resonant. Have you ever seen a community unite when they've nothing left to lose? Here, they're doing it, and Aylin is the flame guiding them. Walk with Aylin to the riverbank, where she stands, hands on hips, eyeing the now calmer but still dangerous water. "A canal will lead water past the village," she says, pointing to a curving dirt path toward the hill. "Can you see it?" This idea isn't new. Her ancestors dug canals to save fields, and Aylin learned from her mother's fireside stories. She rallies the villagers, assigning tasks. A Kang and Ziha dig earth, Granny Chin and A Wei haul mud, while she and other women build a dike with straw and soil. Want to wield a hoe? Aylin hands you a worn bamboo one, its handle smoothed by time, and says, "Dig deep, but slow." Can you feel the weight of this work? Each stroke is a vow that the flood won't win again. Dig with her. Feel the soft earth yield under the hoe, mud sticking to your hands. Aylin works without pause, hair matted with sweat, but she doesn't complain. "The dike must be high," she says, eyes checking each layer of earth. Ziha, at the canal's end, shouts as he hits a rock, and Ah Kang, now a man, rushes to help. Can you hear the laughter? It's small, but it rings out when Ah Kang slips, falling into the mud. Granny Chin, though tired, laughs too, and Aylin, though stern, quirks her lips. Have you ever found joy in grueling work? The villagers do, and it binds them, if only for a moment. Look deeper into this community. The dike isn't just earth and straw, it's a symbol of unity. Old Man Wang, unable to dig, tells of ancestors who built dikes by hand, surviving 10 flood seasons. "The earth remembers," he says, his voice hoarse. Aylin doesn't believe the earth has memory, but she believes in the strength of those beside her. Do you see how she guides May? The girl, though small, carries straw, and Aylin says, "Good job, you're a builder." Can you feel the pride in her voice? She's not just building a dike. She's building a future for her children, for the village. Have you ever worked for something bigger than yourself? Aylin does, and you're here, digging mud with her. Feel the rhythm. The thud of hoes, the fall of earth. The villagers' murmurs blend into a wordless song. The dike takes shape. The canal begins to guide water, and you see a small stream flow away from the village, as if the river has agreed to relent. Aylin stands tall, wipes sweat, and looks at you. "The river won't beat us," she says, her voice soft but certain. Want to know a curious detail? The Han believed a dike needed a rice offering to gain the river god's approval. Aylin isn't superstitious, but she scatters a pinch of rice into the canal as her mother taught. Have you ever done something for tradition, unsure of its meaning? Aylin does, and it keeps her grounded. Stay here, by the newly dug canal. Do you see the afternoon sun? It's golden now, as if blessing the survivors. Aylin looks at you, her eyes not just those of a dike builder, but of a community builder. "More work to do," she says, her voice low. Do you understand? The dike is a start, But the journey is long, and Aylin, with her muddy hands, will lead you through. Still with me? Good, because you're here, by the canal, with her, building a future from mud. Twilight falls, draping Underhill Village in a soft purple glow, the newly dug canals shimmering like silver threads through the mud. You stand beside Aylin, shoulders aching from a long day of digging and dike building, yet your heart feels lighter, as if each hoe stroke washed away some fear. Her house stands firm, the hearth burning steadily, the faint scent of rice porridge from the clay pot mingling with drying mud. Ame sits by her mother, drawing shapes in the dirt, while Awe helps Ziha tie fresh bamboo for the pig pen. The yellow river, now a distant murmur like an ancient song, seems to have accepted peace, at least for now. Aylin gazes at the river, hands clasped, not in fear, but in thought of what she'll leave for tomorrow. Today, you'll join her in reflecting on her legacy, not gold or fame, but the mark of an ordinary woman who led a village through a flood. Are you ready to step into her memories and the generations to come? Let your eyes sweep over the village. The new canals guide water away from the fields, and the rough dike stands tall, a defiance against the river. Do you see Granny Chin? She's rebuilding her shed, singing a folk song, her voice hoarse but vibrant. A Kang, now vital to the village, carries bamboo to help Old Man Wang mend his house. The villagers are no longer muddy ghosts. They're builders, and Aylin is the flame igniting their spirit. "We did it," she says, her voice low, gazing at the gleaming canal. Have you ever felt pride in something you built with your own hands? Aylin feels it, though she doesn't say it aloud. Sit beside her on the newly patched porch. She hands you a bowl of watery porridge, smiling. Eat. You need strength. Can you smell the rice? It's bland but warm, a reminder that survival is a precious gift. Aylin tells you of her mother, who taught her to dig canals, tie stilts, and keep fires burning through floods. She left no gold, she says, but she left me. Do you see her eyes? They shine, not with pride, but with the knowledge she's carrying on that legacy. Ame, drawing a fish in the dirt, will learn from her mother, and Aiwei, though mischievous, already knows how to catch fish in flood pools. Have you ever thought about what you'll pass on? Aylin does, and her legacy is this village. Look beyond, to future generations, the canals and dike. Aylin helped build won't just save the village today. They'll guard against floods to come, when Ame grows, when Awei has his own family. Can you see it? Each of her hoe strokes is a story retold, each layer of dike earth a lesson for descendants. Old Man Wang, under a tree, has begun calling her the Flood Woman, though Aylin snorts when she hears it. I'm not special, she says, but you know she's wrong. She's the flame, the guide, the heart of Underhill Village. Granny Chin, now calling her sister, thanks her daily for saving her son. Ah Kang, once lazy, looks to her as a leader. Have you seen the power of an ordinary person standing tall? Aylin is proof, and you're here, witnessing it. Feel the air. Birds chirp brightly, and the hearth smoke blends with drying earth. Aylin doesn't pause to bask in pride. She checks the fire, counts firewood, and teaches May to tie straw. "You must remember," she says, her voice gentle. "Can you hear it?" She's not just teaching her daughter to tie straw. She's teaching survival, love, building. Ziha, sitting close, smiles. She's stronger than the river. Have you ever seen someone stronger than nature? Aylin doesn't think she is, but every act, digging canals, building dikes, holding her children through floods, is a triumph. Want to know a curious detail? The Han believed those who saved a village were remembered by the river god, their names living in the earth. Aylin doesn't believe, but you know her name will endure through May, the canal, the village. Step outside, look at the sky. The clouds have cleared and stars twinkle, as if blessing the survivors. Aylin stands beside you, gazing up, and says, "Tomorrow, we plant rice." Can you hear the hope in her voice? She doesn't speak of gold or fame. She speaks of rice, of life, of legacy. Do you want to stay with her? Because Aylin's legacy isn't just canals or dikes. It's the strength of an ordinary woman. And you, yes, you're here, on her porch, with her, looking at the stars. The stars twinkle in the night sky like tiny lanterns hung above, illuminating Underhill Village, now showing signs of new life. You sit beside Aylin on her porch, warmth from the hearth seeping through the door, mingling with the scent of dried mud and fresh straw. Her house stands firm, its bamboo stilts solid, thatched roof patched, and the new canal glimmers under the moonlight, guiding water away from the fields. May sleeps soundly in her mother's arms. Wei curls up by the firewood, and Ziha, axe at his side, murmurs about building a new pig pen. The yellow river, now a gentle ripple like a lullaby, seems to have conceded defeat, at least for now. Aylin gazes at the sky, her eyes no longer those of someone fleeing floods, but of one who's learned the river's lesson. Survival is fighting, but living is loving. Today, you'll reflect with her on the village's journey, the strength of humanity, and the timeless lesson the flood left behind. Are you ready to look back and move forward? The village, though mud-stained, breathes again. Do you see the firelight from other houses? They're small but bright, like candles defying the dark. Granny Chin, next door, roasts fish, the aroma wafting, and her son's laughter rings out, faint but real. Kang, once dreaming of officialdom, now digs earth with a smile, as if the flood taught him the value of his hands. Old Man Wang, under a tree, tells tales of Lin, the flood woman, though she shakes her head when she hears. "I'm not special," she said last night, but you know she is, not because she's stronger than others, but because she never gave up. Have you ever realized the power of an ordinary person standing tall? Aylin is proof, and you've walked with her every step. Look back on this journey. Do you remember when the rain began? When Aylin checked stilts with eyes sharp as blades? You saw her dash through floodwaters to save Granny Chin's son, dig roots in the forest, and build a dike under a gray sky. You heard the fireside stories, from legends of river gods to memories of her mother, and you witnessed how she kept the fire burning through the coldest nights. Can you see it? The flood wasn't just water, it was a test, and Aylin, with muddy hands, passed. She didn't do it alone. Granny Chin shared fish, A Kang hauled bamboo, Ziha drove stilts, each a piece of the village. Have you ever thought about a community's strength when all rise together? Here, you've seen it, in every hoe stroke, every smile. Feel the night air, the gentle breeze, the crackling fire, and Aylin's whispers as she tells A May of rice fields that will grow again. You'll see green rice, she says, her voice soft as the wind. Can you hear the hope? It's not loud, but deep, like the now calm river. Aylin doesn't dream of gold or fame. She dreams of rice, of her children growing, of a village standing through the next flood season. Want to know a curious detail? The Han believed the Yellow River was a god, and each flood was its way of teaching humility. Aylin doesn't believe in gods, but she learned the lesson. The river takes, but also gives, not fish or mud, but the strength to rise. Have you ever learned from what hurt you? Aylin did, and it made her stronger. Stand, walk with her to the canal's edge. Moonlight glints on the small stream, flowing clear of the fields. Aylin touches the dike's earth as if feeling the village's pulse. We did it, she says. Not to you, but to those lost, like Ah Ying. Can you see it? Her legacy isn't just canals or houses. It's the lesson that people, however small, can face nature. She teaches A Wei to dig canals, A May to love, and the village to rise. Have you ever thought about your legacy? Aylin doesn't think hers is grand, but you know she's wrong. She leaves a village, a story, a flame. Stay here, under the moonlight. Do you see Aylin's eyes? They shine, not with victory, but with the knowledge tomorrow will come, and she'll be ready. The river will test us again, she says, her voice light. Do you understand? Surviving isn't the end. It's a beginning, and Aylin, with all her heart, has shown you that. Do you want to carry this lesson forward? Because her story isn't just about floods. It's about people, about you, about us. Still with me? Good, because you're here, by the canal, with her, carrying the light of a village that survived. Beneath the twinkling night sky, you sit beside Aylin on her porch, moonlight casting a silver glow over the new canal, its quiet waters flowing away from Underhill Village. Her house is now a small fortress, bamboo stilts sturdy, thatched roof tight, and the hearth crackling, banishing the chill of flood memories. A May sleeps soundly in her mother's arms. A Wei curls up by the firewood, and Ziha, axe at his side, snores softly, weary but at peace. The Yellow River, now a gentle murmur like a lullaby, seems to have accepted peace. Aylin gazes at the stars, hands clasped, not in worry, but embracing the river's lessons: resilience, community, love. Today, you'll join her in summing up the journey through the flood, reflecting on the legacy of an ordinary woman and receiving a good-night wish from a surviving village. Are you ready to close this story and carry its light forward? Look back on the journey you've shared with Aylin. Do you remember when the first rains fell? When she checked stilts with eyes sharp as blades? You saw her dash through floodwaters to save Granny Chin's son, dig roots in the forest, and build a dike under a gray sky. You heard the fireside tales, from river god legends to memories of her mother, and witnessed her keep the fire burning through the coldest nights. You stood muddy beside her, patching floors, mending roofs, and feeling fear as new rain loomed. Aylin isn't a hero from history books. She's a mother, a wife, a survivor. Have you ever realized the strength of ordinary people when they rise? Aylin is proof, and you've walked with her through every hoe stroke, every smile. The village now bears a new shape. Do you see the firelight from other homes? Brighter now, like candles igniting hope. Granny Chin, with her new shed, shares dried fish with neighbors, her laughter ringing as if she lost nothing. A Kang, once a lazy dreamer, is now a pillar, hauling bamboo to help old man Wang rebuild. The canal and earthen dike, dug by hand, stand tall, not just protecting the village, but reminding all they're stronger than the river. Aylin is the flame that lit them all, not because she sought glory, but because she couldn't do otherwise. "We are the village," she said last night, and you saw villagers nod as if she spoke their hearts. Have you ever felt part of something greater? Here, you feel it, in every fire's glow, every story. Reflect on the river's lesson. The flood wasn't just water, it was a test, and Aylin, with muddy hands, passed. She taught you that surviving isn't fleeing, but building, not alone, but together. Do you remember when she shared the last piece of fish, held a May through rain, led villagers to dig the canal? Each act was a lesson. Love is stronger than fear, community stronger than nature, hope stronger than loss. Want to know a curious detail? The Han believed the Yellow River was a god, each flood its way of teaching humility. Aylin doesn't believe in gods, but she learned humility, not by bowing to the river, but to those beside her. Have you ever learned from what challenged you? Aylin did, and you've seen her grow through every raindrop. Stay here, under the moonlight. Aylin's legacy isn't gold or fame. It's the village, the canal, A May who'll tell her mother's story, A Wei who'll dig canals for the next generation. Do you see her eyes? They shine, not with triumph, but with knowing she's left a mark, however small. Have you ever thought about your own mark? Aylin doesn't think she's special, but you know she's wrong. She's the flame, the guide, the heart of Underhill Village. She looks at you, smiling. Good night, my friend. Can you feel the warmth in her words? It's not just a wish, it's a reminder that you, yes, you, walked with her through the flood, and you carry her lesson. Close your eyes, feel the hearth's warmth, the distant river's song, the gentle breeze. You've seen a village survive, a woman lead, a community stronger than nature. What will you take from this story? Aylin's strength, her love, or the lesson that people, however small, can rebuild from mud? You're still here, on her porch, with her, under the moonlight. Good night, my friend. This story ends, but its light stays with you.